The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
That's my good afternoon. We're on Mannin Line today. Open line through till 1 o'clock. Text 166 177. WhatsApp, same number, 166 177. You may have to stick 07624 in the front to get us into your contacts. Email studio@manxradio.com. Call 66 1368. I'll go through some of the message you didn't quite get to yesterday with the Chief Constable. It was a very busy show yesterday, and if there's anything you want to reflect on what Russ Foster had to say yesterday, particularly talking about armed officers. Unequivocal, really, unapologetic, really. That's the way it is. He said we have some bad people, basically, on the Isle of Man, and we have to be able to respond to them, and he didn't want to put his officers in the way of danger, if I'm paraphrasing him correctly. So any follow-up on what the Chief Constable had to say yesterday, by all means, do get in touch. Obviously, there's Chief Minister is facing that no confidence vote currently in Keys. It's being broadcast on AM 1368 and, of course, on our social media channels as well. And as soon as we hear anything about that, then obviously we'll tell you what it is. In the meantime, is it true, says Pete, that Manx citizens aren't allowed to collect stones from the beach for landscape garden projects? I'd heard this. I didn't know whether it was just skeet or not. But is it true? Bearing in mind, we've got millions of the darn things, particularly on Douglas Promenade, particularly by the Castlemona Avenue, where that new wall is. Is it illegal to take stones from the beach for landscape garden projects? I suppose it depends what size it is. But anyway, if you've fallen foul of that, by all means do get in touch. And if you can dispel that as any sort of skeet, then please do. Thank you, Pete, for that. Is it true Manx citizens aren't permitted to collect stones from the beach for landscape garden projects? By all means, get in touch. What's the news really about the poppy that's not being sold in towns across because of offence to different religions in the UK? I didn't know that, Jeffrey. Is it true? Is this happening on the Isle of Man? Forgetting the veterans who have given us freedom and the millions who are in graveyards all over the world. Not heard that, Jeffrey, but if anybody's got any news on that, I mean, certainly have to tell you, we got the poppies here at reception at Manx Radio. If you're nipping in for a poppy or two, then by all means, do that. A message also regarding the Manx Utilities plan for onshore wind farms in the south of the Isle of Man. Well, do you remember they said it's going to be okay because it is going to provide a proportion of our electricity, but it will affect the people close by because of the aesthetics of it. Well, that is stating the blindingly obvious, of course. If you've been to one of these onshore wind farm get-togethers, what are your thoughts about it? Have you chatted to the people from the Wardell Armstrong to see what it is they think of it? I mean, they'll obviously be towing the company line, but are you any further along the way? Manx Utilities say that this facility is going to provide 25% of the island's electricity, so 75% not. But there have been concerns about the visual impact the turbines would have at Earystane. Well, they're big and they're close. So a series of meetings have been taking place over the past 10 days to share your thoughts. And I'd appreciate it if you've been to one, just to, particularly if you've never phoned me before, just to tell me, exactly what it is. Did you get much from it? That's what I want to know. Anyway, Juan's with us now. Hi, Juan.
Oh, I just woke up. I'm still on hold from yesterday. But, I know it's Halloween, Andy, but you didn't have to ghost me that quick. God's truth, I was on hold for 30 minutes.
My word.
What, my word? What button didn't you press yesterday? I had all them questions lined up for the Chief Constable, and you didn't press the button.
What were they?
Well, I mean, I know what the Invisible Man felt like now. So, I'm just listening to the speeches that have started in Tynwald at the moment and in the Keys, but I'll cover that tomorrow, I think, because I just want to refer back to yesterday's programme. And as you just said there, the Chief Constable was very adamant in his way of policing. So I just wanted to go over a few things here, because once you start accepting stuff, there's no way back. That Pandora's box won't close again. So he's very adamant about armed police going around the island.
Well, he said there are no more, there's no greater number of armed police than there ever were. That's what he said.
No, and it's a great spin. It's a great spin. But, I was at the government conference there, and it was quite blatant and clear that on the 2 days that every person that was at the conference would be out in the lobby having coffee and talking, that the 2 armed police officers walked right the way through the middle and up to the end, loitered there for a while and walked out again. Pure propaganda. There's no logic for them being there. What they're trying to do with this is normalise it. Now, people were talking yesterday about how friendly the police are and how nice the Isle of Man is and how laid back it is. And that's why people come here. And that's why there's so many sold signs in the estate agencies at the moment, because they're getting away from the absolute total rubbish that's coming down the line in England. And they're trying to normalise this, police going around with guns. Once it's normalised, it will never go away. And looking today that on the Manx Radio news site of a final arrest or gone to jail for a person. I think there was 3 or 4 of them involved in a massive drugs haul. It was a local person. I mean, the thing is, they use mules to come here. These big guys don't set foot on the Isle of Man. The only time they ever set foot here is to collect their dosh when there's outstanding money. It's all local mules that come here. And for years, there's been a follow to source put in by the police. So they don't capture these people here. They let them run. They let them do what they do. And then they follow to source to get the big guys. Well, that's great. But while that's happening, we're getting our island damaged by this stuff coming in here. So they're letting the people walk around the island. They know quite well who most of these people are. They're just trying to follow to source. Another point as well. Many years ago, and I know from family who were in the armed forces, there was a no-touch list in Northern Ireland of certain people involved with certain forces over there in Northern Ireland, that they couldn't touch them. And I know for a fact that them people were on the plane to the Isle of Man loads of times over here. And the government knew. It's political. And as I think the Chief Constable mentioned quite a few times yesterday, a lot of his direction on policing is coming from Home Affairs. So I would ask, I mean, is a police officer under oath anymore? Or is it a policeman under oath? Is it a police officer, or are they just police enforcers? I don't understand. I mean, it was supposed to be the whole policy of constabulary and policing was to support the local person. From what he was saying yesterday, he seems to be taking all his lead from Home Affairs.
God, he did
correct?
he said at one point that it's the Peelian philosophy. That's the Robert Peel, i.e. The people are the police and the police are the people. So you police by consent. And he mentioned that.
I just think that there's a little bit of an overstep. We're talking about national ID coming in and things like that. And I think Stephen's mentioned this on here before. We've got we're free movement between the UK, and I am all for keeping the borders safe. are absolutely 100% keeping the borders safe. We're not getting much help at the moment from the non-check of people coming into the country at the moment into here. And as I said to Jane Poole-Wilson at the government conference, a lot of this stuff is problem, reaction, solution, because they've created some of the problem themselves by not doing certain things. They've got a lot of stuff in law that they're not acting on. So the problem's been created from them. They're waiting for the reaction from us, which is keep our islands safe, and then coming out with a solution, which they already have. She mentioned facial recognition on the boats and coming off the ports. Well, as I suggested to her from 3 or 4 different videos I'd had through the week before, all they were doing was following the UK agenda, because massive big vehicles had turned up in cities in the UK with facial recognition units on. So all they're doing is following the UK agenda. And that's what bothers me with all this, is mission creep. And I am all for keeping the island safe, don't get me wrong, because there's going to be people coming on now talking about, oh, he's talking a load of rubbish. And again, it's an opinion programme. But as far as national ID goes, I think we should be very careful where this heads. Some people would say, where do we go next? Do we put a star on our jacket?
So tell me, do you particularly feel perturbed by seeing an armed police officer? I mean, not in Florida, but in the Isle of Man. Does it bother you?
It's going to change the direction of how we feel about where we live. I mean, the Isle of Man, like we said yesterday, people are happy that they can talk to the police, they can have a laugh and a joke. And I'm out and about at events all summer there, very busy events, and the police are integrating and they're talking and laughing with people, and they're out there, they're visible, and they're doing their job. If that changes to someone walking up and down with an AK-47 strapped to them, that's going to change the whole aspect of the Isle of Man. Now, people are going to stand and go, I feel a lot safer with that. But it will change the visible aspect of the Isle of Man and how we are living, I think, personally.
So do you think, do you think our borders are porous? Do you think our borders aren't safe? Because the Chief Constable seemed to think they're not safe.
And again, to my point here, Andy, I mentioned this the other week, a serving police officer, I'm not saying what, says, we are ready for what's coming. Now, what is that statement? And what I wanted to ask Russ Foster yesterday is, what is coming? If you know it's coming, then nip it in the bud and stop it. But there's certain mission creep here, which is not, it's not Isle of Man context, it's UK context. And this problem is not ours as well. I mean, the UK is inundated with refugees, immigrants, and illegal immigrants coming in. And this is a power play. I mean, this is quite clearly big money behind this to destabilise countries. And I think the Isle of Man shouldn't get involved in some of this stuff. Yes, we should protect our borders. What's wrong with them putting on their ANPR on the boat and do all this stuff at the other side? By the time that they get here, they can enforce regulation on the people that they say, oh, we've got a problem with this vehicle.
So whereabouts would you put ANPR? Would it be on Lancashire soil, on the entrance to the Manxman, or would it be when the vehicles come off the boat by the link span in Douglas?
You got it with the middle one, in my opinion, because you don't have to engage them with Merseyside and Cheshire or Lancashire Constabulary who govern them ports. You put it on your own boat. We own the boat. That can be connected to the constabulary. By the time that boat gets here, 2.5 hours, all you through them cars, and then they can quite clearly see who's coming off the boat. So I just think once you start putting facial recognition in, this will be the start of Big Brother. And again, people are going to disagree, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. You've got a boat there that's taken 2.5-3 hours to get here. All the work could be done before that boat arrives.
But that's going to have to be with the compliance of the steam packet, though.
But we own the steam packet. I mean, all this thing about the compliance of it, Andy, if it's for national safety and security, then the government talk to the steam packet, the constabulary talk to them. They're already taking over ports and security, which I mentioned 3 months ago on this programme. So, this could all be done. Surely this could all be done. And there's ways and methods there that there's already in force without mission creep. Because I think quite clearly, looking at what's happening in the UK and further afield, it's mission creep for control and compliance.
Okay, so you reckon then ANPR on the boat, but not to facial recognition?
Not ANPR, absolutely. And people who are travelling should produce an ID. There's nothing wrong with that. You've got a passport, you've got a driving licence. But once you start getting into facial recognition, I think you're going into dangerous territory. And if you look at what's happening all over the world and the way that this government complies with British legislation and the way British legislation is controlled by other people, this is creep.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Appreciate it. June, thanks for calling. Good to talk to you. And Chris is with us now. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Andy. I went to one of the 8 MUA meetings regarding the wind turbine.
Right.
I went on to Ramsey on Friday night, and I went there thinking what a fantastic idea it was to have these wind turbines. I hoped that it would give the public a cheaper electricity. How wrong I was. And to be right honest, Andy, now I think they need to stop these wind turbines straight away. Just stop it, forget it. Do not waste any more money on it, especially if it's public money. Because, yes, the wind turbines will produce electric at 5p per kilowatt hour, or that's what I was informed. But there's no saving whatsoever for the Manx public as far as I understand it. I was really, really disappointed with what I actually heard. And I'm totally dead against them now, I really am. Obviously, if there's any profit to be made, it's going to be made for the MUA, but not for the Manx public. And yes, it's going to be a quarter of the Manx power, and the other 3/4 will be from the UK, from the power line there, or maybe even the generators that are here. But I'm really, really against the wind turbines now.
And what was it particularly? I mean, how did the scales fall from your eye? What did you notice?
In my opinion, it's purely my opinion, and maybe I'm a bit daft here, but there was so much deceit from the people that was running the meeting. That was my opinion. When I was asking questions, they were really twisting things. They didn't come out with straight answers. In my opinion, the electric infrastructure for this island is very, very poor. I did say to them, the UK's got thousands and thousands of wind turbines, but people don't get it any cheaper. And they said, but we can produce it at 5p a unit. And I said, yeah, but is that going to be for the people? Will the people get it at 5p a unit? Oh, no, they'll get it at the rate. And at the moment, it's 29p per kilowatt hour the rate is. So, really disappointing. If anybody thinks that these wind turbines are to give the island's population cheaper electricity, it's not how I heard things or how I understand it. It really isn't. So,
do you have any feelings about the offshore electricity, the offshore stuff that Earystane want to put on the East Coast?
What my thoughts are with that, Andy, if it's onshore and it's no better for the Manx public, cheaper, then surely the offshore can't be any cheaper either. It's going to be just the same. I was always dead in favour of this sort of stuff, but hoping that people would get things at a better rate. But it appears not. Yeah, it really does. I think my personal opinion is Manx utilities need to come on and be really honest with the people what they are doing and what the costs are going to be. And at no time did they tell me what the costs for the wind turbines were. And they were saying there that they could produce electric at 5 pence per kilowatt hour. But in my opinion, it's not including the cost of all the infrastructure for them wind turbines. So for me now, I'm dead against it, and just stop it right away. Just stop right now.
Okay. All right, Chris, we appreciate that. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
Good to hear from you. 12:25. David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. I just wanted to talk about yesterday, Chief Constable. I thought he was fine, giving us an actual direction where we're going. He is not a political member, so we can't ask You can't ask him political questions because he has a minister of a Department of Home Affairs. But regarding, and I'd ask the people out there to say, what would give us the best support to the police is facial recognition at the ports, that's at the sea terminal itself, and at the airport. The other thing is regarding number plate recognition. I just wondered whether the DOI are realising how many vehicles are running around on English plates, maybe not paying or contributing towards the Isle of Man money to pay for the potholes and stuff like that. We need to do these things. This stuff has been proven to work. And if we're to support the Chief Constable in his endeavours to do things, what's the worry about if Andy Wint's going past the airport and somebody says hello to you?
So is it, this question of is it Big Brother or not, how do you feel about that?
I don't think it's Big Brother. I did have a thing from years ago when I was a bit younger, I suppose, thinking that Big Brother was going to happen. But you look at all the things now, the phones we've got, computers we've got, tracking people. I mean, the best thing in the world you've got now, you put a track on a phone. I was talking to somebody, I won't mention them, they're walking around one of our forests in the Isle of Man, and the best thing they said to me was they put a tracker on the phone because when it got dark and they couldn't find a way out. And that's technology helping the people of the Isle of Man, A, to enjoy themselves and to be safe. Because there will be individuals that come to the Isle of Man to do us harm. And do we want them? No. We stopped them at the beginning. So let's get on with it. What worries me is Jane Poole-Wilson is saying she hasn't got time with the AG's department for legislation. Buy some. There must be loads of lawyers now outside there now, what's been approved. And they could be challenged to say, you've got 20 grand to bring some legislation forward, because sometimes you're only plaguing it off somebody else, don't you? But you suit it towards an Isle of Man situation and get it done. Let's get some of these things done. And the final thing, I've been listening to the other channel anyway, I must confess to that. But maybe one of the issues is if the politicians are not part of this government to contribute to our community, they lose 20 grand in pay. See how many work that out. Okay. See you, boy.
Thanks for calling today. And thanks, David. Eddie's with us now. Hi, Eddie.
Hi, Andy. All right. Yep. You're asking for feedback on the meetings, yeah?
Which one did you go to?
Well, I tried to get to every one of them. I did get to every one of them, but not all day. So, yeah, you want some feedback? I can give you some.
You went to every one of them?
Yeah, well, I'm the one outside, totally against them. I'm with the members outside against them.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. The fact that you went to every one, I would imagine they'll be asking you to their Christmas dinner. They probably think you're a member of staff.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Anyway, what did you think?
Well, first of all, most of the meetings are no different than the earlier ones at Port St Mary and so on. They're just a PR exercise for the two people concerned, the MUA and Wardle Armstrong. On each day, by the way, we, as a group, we went in and put questions to them, and we sort of roughly knew what sort of answers we would get, the same old spiel. For instance, I went in one day and I was talking to Ian from Wardell Armstrong, and I put it to him about what if they could. Did you know, by the way, that they're cutting all the forest down, not some of it?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, yeah, they've actually admitted now the whole forest will come down. And I said, if that happens, my daughter's a geologist, she will, and she tells me that you will increase the amount of water that comes immediately off the land because you've taken away all the trees, which are a sponge. The concrete bases of these things will take away the heathland, which is a sponge. So I asked him what sort of things you've done or what are you going to do with the excess water, which will be anything from 5-fold to 12-fold. You can never tell. If you get a massive storm, I mean, I can remember we had 5 days on the trot there about 8 years ago, and it was just a flood all the way down the road.
And what did they say?
Well, they're going to put culverts in, and I said you'll need a lot, and water holding areas, and then divert it into the Corby River. And I said, well, what about flooding in the Corby River area, all the houses lower down? Oh, well, it won't happen. And I said to him, like what happened in Laxey? Look at the damage and the insurance. Nobody can get insurance covers down there. I said, you're actually increasing the dangers of the water. Well, some of it will go to the Silverburn, he said. So I said, okay, then you're gonna divert some of it into the Kringle Reservoir then. Yeah, but that will absolutely overwhelm the reservoir there. And I said, you're actually creating flood risk. Now, I always thought that the law said if you're not supposed to increase flood risk. So that was just one point, but there was numerous points that we put over to them each day, similar questions that we've already asked, and the same old answers over and over again. But what really did, you said you wanted a bit of feedback. What was really interesting was the fact that we are inspired in one way by the amount of people that came out there, and then they came over to us saying, they'd like our opinion. And when they left us, they had a different frame of mind altogether. Because we were giving them straightforward answers to some of the questions that they didn't get answers to inside.
What sort of questions didn't they get an answer to?
Well, we could give them answers to our... say, for instance, one question was, is there a noise risk? Because they've told us inside there is none. So we would show them then some of the paperwork that we have that says that from low frequency, there is a definite health risk all over the world. That's one of the reasons why some of them are being taken down in certain places, Andy. Like the one I tell you about in France. The two reasons why that was forced to be taken down was low-frequency noise interfering with the sleep patterns of everybody in the vicinity and bird kill. The other thing was bird kill. Yeah, people kept coming out and saying, can it damage the birds? And we'd give them all the information on that. In fact, a very really nice thing was the very last day we had in Ramsey, one of our neighbours up here brought his peregrine falcon, and it was on display outside the town hall in Ramsey. And people were amazed to see how beautiful that bird is, and it's one of the vulnerable ones from the wind turbines. Okay.
All right, Eddie, we appreciate it. Good to hear from you.
No problem.
All the best. 26 minutes now before 1. Eddie mentioned Ben McCree. The Ben McCree is taking part in berthing trials at the new Liverpool ferry terminal. The last of the steam packets vessels to do so. The Manxman's done it. Manannan's done it. Obviously, she's there all the time. But the Ben is going, which also, news from the Ben is also she's off to Scotland. She's due to arrive in Scotland later this week with a view to being chartered by CalMac, Caledonia McBrain. Basically, it's a state-owned ferry operator or state-backed ferry operator. And she's conducting berthing trials on the route linking the Isle of Arran and Troon. Ben's been used as a backup by the steam packet since the Manxman came into service last year, and that's it apparently. The Ben McCree will assist with services while Caledonia McBrain awaits its new vessels. What could happen in the future? Is she going to be leased, rented, sold.
Discover a fabulous range of watches, gifts and jewellery at Ramsey Art Gallery, with top brand watches from Bulova, Citizen Eco Drive and Storm to Acura, Seconda and Timex. Plus, all watch purchases come with free lifetime watch bracelet adjustment service. There's stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course a fabulous gallery of limited edition prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite Ramsey RNLI shop.
Crossroads, Isle of Man, putting carers first.
Crossroads have been providing to local carers and people with care needs for over 30 years. Support our valuable work by buying your Christmas cards and calendars from Crossroads. Available now. You'll find a great range to choose from at the Crossroads shops or by contacting Crossroads.
Crossroads, Isle of Man, putting carers first.
Quadlock is the strongest and most secure mounting system in the world for integrating your phone, camera or accessories into your outdoor pursuits and for your car, van or motorhome. See the Quadlock display at H&H Motorcycles in South Key, Douglas.
At Manning Medics, we offer a wide range of health checks and specialist private consultants, including respiratory, renal, general surgery and gastroenterology. We can even do home visits too. To find out about all we have to offer and to book, visit manningmedics.com. Manning Medics, quality healthcare you can trust. Manning Medics is a trading name of I'll Love Your Gut Limited.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
A Gilg, the Manx Gaelic, Ginian Amera, the mother tongue of Elian Vannin, the Isle of Man. You can catch up with more of Manx Radio's Manx language programmes in the weekly podcast Abershen Rish. Say that again. Shene, that's the one.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Harry dropped a note in just to say, I'm not politically minded, but all I see is a big game being played, not much real work getting done because politicians seem to spend more time trying to plan for the next election or reshuffle. No different to a cross, really. Just been listening to Keys, and I've heard people I don't even recognise. Well said, Mr. Ashford, said Harry. You'll hear David Ashford was criticising the motion earlier on. We'll have more reports, of course, as the whole thing plays out. You can hear it live on AM 1368 and on the DAB. But regarding the Chief Constable's comments, was there a follow-up on the many thefts from the gang that came to the Isle of Man, says John. I don't care where they put the wind farms, as long as it's not in the north. Not in my back garden, says Gary. Very happy with Ramsey without a wind farm. Apparently they will last forever, said the man at the wind farm meeting. And I asked what we do with the blades that need replacing. He said dump them here or ship them across, says Liz D. Here's Betty now. Hello, Betty.
Hi, I agree with Eddie about the wind farms. I don't think, I think that the climate is changing, but I don't think wind farms are the answer at all. I think that the profits will go to the people who produce them, and we'll be left with, as you say, the blades and everything and all this concrete and flooding and so on. I just totally agree with Eddie and Stu Peters, and I think the money should be spent on other things. But what I'm afraid of is that the government more often than not, doesn't listen to what the people want. And that's such a shame.
So, I mean, bearing in mind that we've got this net zero pledge and we've got a plan to cut our carbon emissions, something has to be done. And if it's not wind farms, what should it be?
Well, possibly nuclear, but I don't think we should have a pledge anyway. I think that should go. And I think Stu Peters would be a brilliant chief minister.
My word, it would certainly be different, wouldn't it?
Yes.
All right. Thanks for that. Good to hear from you, Betty. Have a good day. Are the new constables being employed from the Isle of Man or across, says John. I think the chief constable yesterday said they are recruiting. I think they're going to London and Manchester, I think, amongst other places, because he said they're 22 officers short. 22 officers short. Here's a note in that just says, isn't the UK hoo-ha about a poppy being sold with a pride rainbow attached, distorting the meaning of remembrance, says G. I don't know, G. Is that your opinion? Can't believe that our politicians have nothing to say about armed police on the streets. I think it's a huge cultural change. Chief Constable says low risk is not no risk. Life is a risk, but there's no way back from this, says Dave. Interesting. What are your thoughts? I must say the feedback we got yesterday on the text and on the emails was fairly split. Some people said that they didn't like the idea of armed police. Other people were more than happy and just said, if there is a risk, I'd rather have the police have something to react with. Anyway, is it Manx? Does it change our way of life? What do you think? You heard the Chief Constable yesterday. Here's Julian now. Hello, Julian.
Hi, Andy. I found it interesting when he mentioned about recruiting in the UK, and it reminded me of pictures, I think it was on your Manx Radio website, of Manx police being trained in protest management and fireballs going off and all this kind of thing, which I found interesting. I didn't realise that that kind of thing happened very often over here.
Don't think it does.
And I wasn't aware that there was a massive amount of when the police come across somebody that might be a bit suspicious, a lot of people sort of waving firearms around over here either. I think when we spoke about that a while ago, you said that not much, I think was what you said.
Well, the thing is, you can understand in any emergency service, now whether this is, ambulance, whether it's fire and rescue or police, the concept of risk has changed an awful lot over the past 20, 30 years. So that management of risk comes, with certain protocols nowadays, and presumably with the police, one of those protocols is an armed presence.
Well, yeah, I got the impression yesterday that there's a risk in bringing 15,000 new people here.
Well, he did say that he didn't think the borders were that safe, didn't he? I mean, that was the first question. Are the borders safe? And he said, no, not really.
Well, I agree with what Ewan said. ANPR, and don't forget that those cameras, when you get to that ability of the lens and everything, all you need is a different software package, and that can be facial recognition, or like the Chinese use, gait recognition, so they can actually make a note of how you walk. So
that's it. I mean, you walk up and down Strand Street in Douglas, there's cameras everywhere on Strand Street in Douglas. You go into most of the shops in Douglas and there are cameras everywhere. So, I mean, it's not like we haven't had cameras for 20 years and more.
And, the other thing is, of course, we've had this conversation before about cybercrime. Where's this facial recognition data? Is it safe? Because if you are transmitting that over the internet, I mean, it's like a million wars going on every hour when it comes to hackers trying to get into databases.
Yeah.
So, if your facial makeup is known, how do we know that information, people might say, like David, I think it's a good idea. Are you happy if the Chinese government have got access to your information, or North Korea, or any of those places?
Well, but to be quite honest, Julian, it's probably a bit late. They probably have got access to it, bearing in mind that a lot of smartphones are actually made in China. Then the fact that most people do have, facial recognition on their smartphone anyway, I mean, that will go somewhere. It'll be, crikey, it will be facile to think some of it didn't get into the wrong hands. But quite what they do with it, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ewan's solution is a very, very good one, where you just have an ANPR camera on the ramp looking, and possibly another one looking the other way, just so there's no missed ones, and just have it on the boat and transmit that via the cloud back to the UK.
Yeah.
Then you haven't got to involve Lancashire or Merseyside or Belfast or Dublin.
But I think we have to understand that the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company is its own company. It may be an arm's length of the Treasury. The Treasury may be the shareholder, but Mr. Brian Thompson is the managing director of that company, and he may not want to do that. He may think that their job is just to ferry passengers, cars, freight, and vans, and not to do the police's work for them.
I'd like to hear his argument against it.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it just seems to be a nice sort of neat solution. Anyway, I'll carry on quick. So I agree with what Jim. I totally agree with Chris, Eddie, and Betty. And I was minded that a friend of mine said I was a bit complex on the phone the other day about, what I found out about the cost of making electricity in the interconnector.
Yeah.
But the route that the government want to take is net zero and getting rid of the power station effectively at some point, isn't it?
Well, they won't get rid of the power station. They can't, because we have to have a backup.
Well, that's right. Although they talk about batteries and this type of thing. But I think it's worth noting, if I really make it easy to understand, at the moment, if you take it in context of our bills, I was told at the Care-Buy presentation by a senior person at the MUA that it costs 7p a unit to make the electricity here.
Yep.
The charge to us is 29p.
Yep. So they're making
FOI,
a hefty profit, yeah.
Yeah, there's an FOI number 3963453 from the MUA that says that when we are drawing electricity down the interconnector, that is at 17.5 pence. So that is 2.5 times more than what it costs us to make it.
Yeah.
So when you said about putting 29p on the fridge and kind of remembering that number, if we were to draw down from the interconnector, it wouldn't be 29p on our bill, it will be 75 pence. If we go down the interconnector route, according to their own figures.
This is the new interconnector you're talking about, the Preston to Groudle one.
Yeah, I mean, they're wanting this green certified electricity that is within the mix of that charge that we're... But the FOI from the MUA says that the cost that we are paying right now down the interconnector is 2.5 times more than it costs to make it at Pulrose with gas, at Pulrose Power Station.
Right.
So if you turned off Pulrose today and we had everything down the interconnector, our bills will almost triple. At the moment, I mean, I'm only doing this off an FOI from the MUA.
Okay.
The other thing I noticed at the Care-Buy first Castletown meeting was Mike Profit was sat in there. And I'm minded, if anybody would like to look on YouTube at Isle of Man TV on the channel, and on that, you'll notice about a year ago, there is a title to a video that Paul Moulton did called Mike Profit, The Future. And he says in there, Paul Moulton asked him, how many turbines would you like on the island? And he said it would either be 50 large ones, so that would be 50 Blackpool Towers, or it would be 100 smaller ones, which would be something along the lines of maybe half as high again as Bradder Head. 100 on the Isle of Man. That would be, some feet shorter than Blackpool Tower, or 50 Blackpool Towers on the Isle of Man. And this is a sober person, apparently, although, of course, we do still have that 150 odd million pounds that was caused by the debt from him putting in Pulrose Power Station in the first place. So I'm not quite sure why he was at that meeting. But it might be interesting for people to go on YouTube, look at Isle of Man TV, look for Mike Profit, The Future, and about some minutes into it, he is asked by Paul Moulton, and he said he'd like to see up to 100 turbines on the island.
Okay.
Why was he at a Care-Buy presentation?
I wonder. All right. And that FOI is 3963453, is that right?
Correct. And
okay.
It actually says £176 a megawatt hour, which works out at 17.6 pence.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Julian. Good to hear from you. Wilf's with us now. Hi, Wilf.
Hi. I've been trying to get on for quite a while. I should have rung yesterday to get on today. Anyway, Chris Proctor's just been on. I know him very well. Clever man. Listen to what he says. I'll try and get through all this crap here. I went to the Earystane wind farm, in the courthouse in Ramsey.
Yeah.
I was only in there for 10 minutes. I didn't ask any questions. I just looked around and read all the placards they had there. And there was only one really that caught my eye that mattered, that I thought. It was about the animals, the birds, the bats, the frogs, etc., etc. And at the bottom it said, "We will relocate them." I thought, that's good enough for me. I'm out of here. These animals and birds and what have you, they don't want to be relocated. That's where they live. That's it. That's the end of that. So I went outside. There was a bigger group outside against, in opposition to Earystane Wind Farm. So I was talking to them for a while, and I'm right with them. Now then, where are we here? It's going to cost, as far as I can see, far more than they said it was going to cost. I reckon, anyway. That's just my opinion. Now, at sea, I'm not in favour of that now, because Kate Humbrell was on the other day on the telly with Country File, and she was having a ride out in a fisherman's boat to look at, I think it was, if I remember, it was Scarborough, I think, to look at the wind turbines there. Yeah. And the boat she went out in was the fisherman's boat who took fishermen out to fish, angling. And she said, does it affect the fishing? And he said, yes. He said, we used to have loads of gurnets here. And he said, since we've had them up, they've gone. And she asked why was that? And he said, the vibration has frightened everything off. My takings have gone right down because I have to go elsewhere, away from the turbines, to catch any fish. Now, the other thing I was just thinking about, it says that we've been on about that wind turbines shed in plastic.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if they shed plastic, and we're talking about bottles and bits of things that's thrown in the ocean, all the rest of it, what about these things shed in plastic? We know that the sea is full of it. And if they are shed in plastic, to me, it seems like we're adding to it and making things, well, far worse, as far as I can see. Now, there's another little thing I was going to comment about. I read in the paper the other day, the two government people, I don't know, the ministers or whatever they were going on well, I call it a jolly, to, I think it was New Zealand or Australia or something. And I thought to myself, the state our government is in here, how can we send people over there to give them advice? I can't understand that, because we're in such a state here. And the thing was, if they need to do that, or they think they need to do that, we've got devices here, which have been in for a long time, where you pick the phone up and you can see each other on the phone to these anywhere on the world.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if we're not going to use these things that were bought, who was the idiot that bought them or promoted to buying them? And we had to pay for them, and we don't use them. I mean, I don't know, everything is in such a state, I haven't got time to read all this.
All right. Right, well, we got to go. We're nearly out of time.
Yeah, okay.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. 6 minutes to 1.
From our castles to our cottages, our museums, and the Great Laxey Wheel. You'll find hidden treasures around every corner when you visit a Manx National Heritage Site. Fill your summer making treasured memories with Manx National Heritage. Sites now open every day. By visiting, you help protect our treasured island for generations to come. Plan your visit today at manxnationalheritage.im.
Walk through the Christmas wonderland at Ramsey Garden Centre for a magical range of trees, decorations, unique gifts and much more, including the widest range of indoor and outdoor lights. Christmas at Ramsey Garden Centre, open 7 days a week.
Oh, blowing a hoolie out there.
Come in for a bravig by the fire. Just stocked up at Hearth. Never been so warm.
Who's that? Hearth?
Aye, they've got kiln-dried hardwood for me log burner, Colombian coal and smokeless ovals for the open fire, kindling and firelighters, all delivered. Great value too.
All goes up the chimney anyway, so I pay more. I'll be giving Hearth a call.
Check their website as well. Just order and they deliver.
For all your fire fuel needs, call Hearth on 560 577 or visit hearth.co.com.
We're nearly out of time. So I've got a few more messages to get through, including Wilf for Chief Minister, says Garth. What a man. Brilliant. Wilf, you've got time. The government should have advocated solar panels on our new builds and conversions 50 or 20 years ago. Look at the amount of estates built in that time and all the energy that could have been saved. Solar panels could have saved us. Thanks for that, 753. The Chinese already have your information, says Desmond. He knows. Look how many people are on TikTok. Information is gathered for ease of control, says Des. I've heard a lot about TikTok and the Chinese government's involvement in that, so really, they probably know everything. It's a bit like the KGB. They probably know everything. They just don't use it. I'll say it again, says Graham. I'll say it again. The clean, green, unobtrusive energy answer for the Isle of Man is beneath our feet. Geothermal, 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 says Graham. And just in case anybody didn't understand, the answer is geothermal. 068 says, Andy, there should be definitely photo ID on the Steam packet nowadays. If we're 22 officers short, by the way, why shouldn't we use the firearms officers to cover the shortfall? I don't know how many firearms officers we have, but for argument's sake, let's say we have 10. What should those officers be doing when there isn't an incident? Are they sitting around in police headquarters all day? Better to have them out on patrol. I think they can do both, I'll be honest with you, Tony, but we'll find out more. The trouble today, says Des, is a lack of respect. What for? Okay, open line tomorrow. Treasury Minister Alex Allinson is on Thursday. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today.
WINT